And it was a really great episode.
Nice. That's good.
Okay. You ready?
Sweet. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back, Raw Thoughts listeners, to another episode where I bring individuals on and we just talk about their life, where they've been, where they are, and where they're going. I want to thank you all for continuing this journey with me and really hearing people's stories and having them being vulnerable, coming onto the camera and letting the world truly hear who they are and what they've been through. So I want to remind you just to be respectful of people and what their journeys have been. I do want to preemptively kind of warn you on this episode, we are going to get pretty in depth. This has been something that, if you are my listeners, that really sits heavy on my heart, which is teen suicide prevention, helping Columbia High School promote teen suicide prevention awareness, raising money, getting folks to actually start programs in the Canyon County, which is phenomenal. And I am super excited to just see where that growth has gone. So today's guest is somebody that has really gone through that and is willing to share his story. We're going to hear a little bit more about him prior to that. But if it really kind of resonates with you, I just want you to be aware of this episode. Further ado, we have an Instagram influencer, Ian Kaler, with us today. So welcome.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for having me on the Raw Thoughts podcast. I'm super excited to be here and tell my story and inspire those that are my age or older or whoever, however old you are. I hope this story inspires you.
Yeah. Tell us, how old are you?
I'm 17 years old.
Yay. You're actually my youngest guest, and I'm so excited for this.
I feel honored.
Yay. So tell us, how did you become an Instagram influencer? What does that mean?
So to me, I just share my thoughts on social media and people take them and do whatever they want with them. They like them, hate them, whatever. I just love sharing my thoughts over social media, and it's my goal is to inspire those that are my age, my generation, to inspire them to find their purpose in life.
Yeah. And that's a pretty young age to find your purpose.
Yeah.
And how did you find your purpose?
I believe that the things that I've gone through have really strengthened me and have pulled me into the direction of what I'm supposed to do. And so I believe the things that I've taken action towards, I believe that's what I'm doing right now. That's what what I'm doing right now is my purpose, basically.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like.
And how is that being in high school and being around a lot of other people that just don't quite know what their purpose is or where they're going, or honestly, if they're even what's happening for their next class? That's kind of a very strange age group where you're developing still, you're still trying to figure yourself out. And now you have to be like, well, what's your purpose? They don't even know what college they're going to.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Just navigating through high school and stuff, seeing a lot of kids at my school especially, and I've seen it at other schools, are so depressed. I just see them walking through the hallway and stuff, and they just don't look like they have a soul. They're so hopeless and so depressed, and you can just tell that by the way they carry themselves, by the way they talk, by the way they act. And it's really depressing seeing that, but it's also inspiring for somebody like me that wants to change that.
Yeah. And being in those and being at your age, where do you really think that comes from?
I believe it comes from, like I was saying, the past experiences I've had. I don't want anybody else to go through those kind of circumstances, because I know how hard it is and I know how hard it can be, and I don't want anybody to go through that. And I want people to find their purpose, because when you find the reason why God put you here on this earth, that's where true joy is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're living out that purpose, that's where true happiness is, and you're going to have a fulfilled life by doing that.
Yeah. And you talk about the things that have happened to you that have really navigated you to the position you're in right now. Do you mind opening up on some of those things and kind of bringing us into your life of what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about my testimony and how I was so lost and anxious and depressed and suicidal 5 years ago, and how I got through that and how I overcame that. It wasn't by my strength, but I'll get through that later. But so yeah, I'll just get into that. So 5 years ago, I was in junior high, which is crazy. Like I was literally in middle school. I was probably 13 or 14 years old, and I can't remember or pinpoint when it started, but for some reason, I developed a fear and a phobia of throwing up, which is really odd because nobody likes throwing up, but I literally developed like a phobia to it. And what was so interesting, this phobia caused me so much anxiety. And so like just to, give you a better look at it, I literally like almost every day I'd have about 2 to 3 panic attacks a day, because of this phobia, because it would always strike like when I'd eat food, or sometimes I'd literally wake up in the middle of the night and I'd have a panic attack. I mean, these panic attacks would strike at, unknown times, like during the day. I couldn't like predict it or anything. And then also I attached school with my anxiety as well, because being around a lot of people and stuff and just somehow like triggered it. And I think I had a panic attack once or twice at school, and then I just attached that feeling to going to school. So there was a period in my 7th grade year of school where I literally missed like 3 to 4 months straight of school. And it was crazy. And I was just going through absolute hell, going through these panic attacks. And my dad, I've lived with my dad my entire life. Just to share a little bit about my backstory, like my early childhood, I was born to a very abusive mother, and my dad fought like hell for me. He fought to save me from my abusive mother, and he finally got custody of me after she had done so many like crazy things. They finally like gave me to my dad, when I was 2.5 years old. And so, then since 2.5, I've lived with my dad my entire life. And my dad, during this time where I was, anxious, depressed, and suicidal, and he saw like these panic attacks, he didn't know what to do. He had never like seen this before, never dealt with a problem of this magnitude. And so he did the reasonable thing. He put me into therapy, put me into counseling, which there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely, that is something you should do. But in this case, it's not exactly what I needed, because for the next 6 months, it was a saga of me and my dad trying to do everything in our strength to get rid of this problem that was inside of me. We tried breathing exercises, we tried medication, anxiety pills. We tried like every kind of therapy, like with my counselor and stuff, and none of it worked. None of it worked long term. And I was so hopeless because I was still the same person, if not worse, when I first started counseling and therapy than I was when I was 6 months into counseling and therapy. I was probably worse. And I just wasn't seeing any progress. I wasn't seeing any growth. And it was really hopeless. I didn't know what to do. And so that's when the suicidal thoughts came, because I thought that would be the best way to go. Because if it wasn't ever going to get better and I was going to have to live through this, I didn't want to do that, Mm-hmm. Like I physically remember an experience where me and my dad are going to see, so I had been going through counseling, right? And we actually went to go see a like clinical therapist to get anxiety medication. And I just remember this therapist talking with my dad, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, man, am I really going to have to take medication just to feel normal again? Like for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to take pills to feel normal. Like I just couldn't even fathom doing that. And so during this time, I was just so desperate for any kind of help, anything that was going to help me at all. And so everything started to turn one night. One night, I was probably having one of the worst panic attacks of my life. I still vividly remember it. I was in my living room, just feeling like I was going to die. And um I just I was so desperate to get rid of this anxiety that was inside of me that I literally like fell to my knees and I just prayed to God for the first time in my life. And if you would have asked me like what I thought about, God before, or like religion or Jesus or Christianity or any of that stuff, I would have like told you like, oh yeah, I believe there's a creator of the universe, but I didn't know him. I didn't have any relationship with God or anything. And so this time, like, it was surprising. My dad even was like, what? Like, but I during this time, I was so desperate to get rid of this that I literally fell to my knees and I said, God, I don't know you, but if you are real, I want you to free me of this. And so my dad like remarks, and he's like, you don't even believe in God. And I'm like, well, if he's real, I want him to free me of this.
Yeah.
And so, and then I want to say probably a few weeks after that experience happened, a girl that my dad was dating at the time invited me and my dad to go to her church. And once again, like, during this time, I was so desperate to get rid of this. When my dad like offered, he's like, hey, do you want to come to church with me and his girlfriend? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Like, I wanted to go because I knew it would probably help me. And so I went to church for the first time that Sunday, and I had a great time. And for the very first time in a long time, I just physically remember going there and feeling just peace, which is exactly what I needed during this time. And I felt peace, I felt joy, and most importantly, I felt hope that this situation could actually change for the better. And so slowly, over time, it wasn't something immediate. Like, I went to church 1 week and it was like, oh, everything's gone. It was a slow progress over time. My anxiety started to lessen and lessen and lessen. My panic attacks were becoming fewer and fewer and fewer. And my health started to improve mightily until it was all gone. All of my anxiety, all of my depression, all of my suicidal thoughts, and all of my panic attacks were gone. There were no more. And as I continued to grow my relationship with God, my physical health improved, my mental health improved, and then every area of my life just started to prosper. And that's where we are today,
Yeah. One, I want to thank you for being so open and discussing such a vulnerable topic. I just want to say thank you to that. And I think you really hit the head on a couple remarks of, you don't remember one specific thing, that this started kind of like happening. It wasn't like, oh, you broke up with your girlfriend or your girlfriend broke up with you and that's where it started, right? And it could be a million different reasons why this started or happened or, kind of started festering within you. And I think that remark right there of you may not pinpoint what actually happened is super incredible for our listeners to know that it may not be something specific. It could be an accumulation. It could be something out of the daylight, like out of the broad daylight, right? Like, you don't remember those things. And I want to give kudos to your dad too, of really not knowing what to do, but doing something.
Yes.
And saying, hey, this is out of my control. I don't know how to help you. I don't know how to fix these things or get you off of that mindset or out of those thought processes. So let me get you to resources where we know that can start getting those, that help there. And even going through the counseling and the therapies and not knowing exactly, right, that it wasn't helping you, that it was maybe something else that you needed. Just the fact that you were exposed to those is incredible at your age. And especially in our, society nowadays, where 13-year-olds, a lot of people were like, oh, they're just young. They don't have any problems. They're fine. They just need to grow out of it. Whatever that excuse that people put on those teenagers can be difficult, right? Like, you didn't know why you were afraid to throw up. Like, to me, that's like, what do you mean you're afraid to throw up?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. but there was something inside you that you had so much fear over that just started getting fed and festering and just kind of growing and growing and growing until we could minimize that. Is there anything from those therapies and those counselings, even after you have found God, that you still go back to if you get into situations like that?
I mean, I do like the breathing exercises a lot. Like sometimes they can be amazing. Like, I really like the practice of meditation when it's needed. Like I definitely think just spending time to just focus on your breath can be life-changing. And a lot of times like I like doing it like at the end of a workout, or if I'm having trouble sleeping or something, I like taking like a few minutes and just focusing on my breath, taking deep breaths and stuff. It can be very relaxing. So yeah, I mean, if there's any practices from counseling that I learned that were good and effective, they would be breathing exercises for sure.
Yeah. And it's one of the simplest things and like
Absolutely.
quickest way, right? Like even having a conversation with you, like I could be doing them and you actually have no idea that I'm doing them, which
Right.
is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But can be beneficial because it doesn't have to be this extravagant thing, or I think some people want this quick and easy fix, right? And that's also another thing that you have mentioned is that this has taken time. This has taken different modalities to figure out what needs to happen. Um, how do you, at your age, relay this to the kids that you see that truly need this? Because our teen suicide rates in Idaho, I mean, really nationally, are astronomical. And there's so many more, easily accessible ways to make a plan happen and successful, that how do we, you know, get them to a point of truly finding that hope like you did?
Mm. Well, the number one reason why so many kids my age are depressed and anxious is because they don't have any purpose. They lack purpose. And so when you can find that purpose, whatever it may be, whether it be like serving somebody, like helping others out, loving on other people, that can be your purpose for now.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it may be, find that purpose and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do it every day and continue to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you find that progress and you continue to become the best version of you, that's where you'll find that happiness. You'll find that hope. And those depressing thoughts will go away.
Yeah. Has that translated from the story that you have just told us into maybe why you have became that Instagram influencer with the things that you speak on and you talk about?
Well, yeah, I love to inspire others to be better. And so I feel like, just like I said, like with the experiences I've had, that's pushed me to go and help other people, namely my generation of kids, because I feel like I can help my generation more than like any other generation. And so, yeah, I feel like that's pushed me to help those people out.
Yeah.
More.
Absolutely. And I think that, I give you so much credit to that because there's a lot of, folks your age where they have gone through similar, circumstances. It doesn't matter what may have started it, but they have been in those circumstances where they don't want this to continue. And so the easiest and quickest way for that to end is to kill yourself.
Right.
And I want the listeners to know that there are resources out there for you. If you are one of those people that feel alone or these thoughts are coming over you, I want you to put the suicide hotline number in your phone right now, because when you're in that moment, you're not thinking straight. You're not thinking rationally to be like, oh, let me Google this. It's what is the quickest and least resistant way to have this stop. And I cannot give you enough gratitude of like how thankful I am that you get to sit here with me and share this story, because so many of my episodes have talked about, the struggles in pivoting and finding that purpose. And I think you truly, at the age and the you're around the kids,
Mm-hmm.
you're around the folks that are having this impact them the most. And so for you to be able to take this pain and turn that into purpose, is you're going to go far in life.
Mhm.
I don't know where you're going to go, but you're going to go freaking far. Okay.
I'd like to, sorry to interrupt
No,
you, but
you're
I'd like
fine.
to say this. I know a lot of kids that are going through something like what I went through. And the thing is yes, killing yourself feels like the most, the least resistant way to just stop things. And I was there. I literally didn't think this was going to go away. I had no hope that this problem, this anxiety, these panic attacks were going to go away. And so I thought that was my only way out. But can I encourage you? There is a way out.
Mm-hmm.
And the perseverance and patience that you are in this season right now is going to pay off. There's a victory at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There's a victory at the end of this season.
Yeah. And how have you, I mean, you're doing so much out of this, right? Like, and you've grown through these things, and you are helping other people, but you will always be on this journey, right? To not have those thoughts or not have those, things come back to you. How do you keep finding your purpose? Because I think, purposes change as we change as people, and there's so much growth for you to still have happen. I mean, I remember at being 17 and just the diversity of what I am now, to
Absolutely.
then is so great. In each season, my purpose has changed. But allowing that to happen, where do you see these things coming from, or where you want to go with your purpose?
Yeah, I believe my purpose has changed a lot over the years as well. And I'm open to any kind of changes that I make, like in my life up to this point. Because I know, obviously, me being 17, like, I don't know what I'm going to look like at 25. Like, I don't know what my life's going to look like by then. And so I'm willing and open to continue to do what I believe is God is telling me to do. Like, starting a podcast is something that I believe he's told me to do, and starting Level Up was something I fell into. A lot of these things just happen, and all these things like happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe like Level Up was literally a side project I started, and I just, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I'm getting views on here. Oh, that's cool. Okay, now I have 10,000 followers on TikTok. What the heck? Like, what's going on? Okay, I'll just keep doing this. And then it blew up on Instagram, and I'm like, wow, okay, cool. Now I have an audience. I can do something with this. You know what I mean? And so now I'm stepping into a new role. I'm stepping into a new thing, trying to build my personal brand up, trying to build my image up. I have a podcast on the way, which I had a podcast previously, but now I want to release a new podcast. And so I'm just continuing to step into new things and challenge myself, because as a young person, I believe it's important that you step into new things and you take risks and you do things that challenge you.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what, there's going to be risks to anything, and you're going to have to take a leap of faith whenever you start something new, whatever it may be, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a business, whether it be a podcast, whether it be a creative project, whatever it may be, there's going to be some risk to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of kids my age are scared to do things because they fear that failure that comes with it.
Yeah. I am going to say that's a human nature thing, because even, people that I know and are older, I don't think it has an age or demographic of, I mean, fear is fear.
Right.
And I mean, there's so many people where, and you were also on Roberto's Commitment to Success podcast, where actually you'll be able to hear both of our stories here soon. So the cool thing about that is that you do have to overcome that fear, because you either have fear or faith.
Yeah.
And you can put your energy into either one of those. And it really has to do with, how are you going to choose, right? Like, you could put your energy into fear, and that's what you're going to manifest, and that's what the, kind of the road that you're going to go down. Or you could put your energy into faith, and that faith can be faith in yourself. That faith can be in God. That faith can be in the universe. Whatever that word faith means to you, if you are putting your energy into that, let's put our energy into faith over fear, right?
Yes, absolutely. I believe a lot of times you got to have a blind faith to do big things. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have big aspirations and big goals at 17, and I believe I have to have a blind faith and to believe that all this thing's going to happen. All these things that I want to possess and I want to create are going to happen. And I believe in my heart that that is going to happen. And I'm putting it into work with all the stuff I'm doing on a daily basis, all the habits and daily actions that I take.
Yeah. What are some of your daily habits that you have?
Um, I'd say I love like creating routines and habits for myself. I believe like having a structure to your days is huge for productivity. And so I love, and one thing about me is I'm constantly learning.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that is huge, especially like no matter what age you are, but especially when you're my age, I am constantly learning like every single day about any kind of topic that I find fascinating that I want to learn more about. And so whether that be reading books, listening to podcasts, just basically managing what I consume on a daily basis is huge. And I love just learning constantly about all sorts of different things. That's one habit that I have that is huge, that like just educating yourself and just having that self-education is huge. And you know, it's so easy to learn anything nowadays, more than it has been than in any other age or generation. You know, if everyone has one of these, a phone, everyone has one of these,
Mm-hmm.
and what you can manage what you consume on this thing.
Yeah.
And so you can either consume, you know, depressing stuff that has, you know, or like stupid videos that literally have no effect on you, or you can use it as an educational device, you know,
Yeah.
or, you know, yeah.
I think that's a great point because I think, especially being on your side of, you are on Instagram, you are on TikTok, you are on all of these things, but the way that you are making that a habit of positivity
Yeah.
and productivity is astronomical, where you've seen that growth. You've seen what those habits are. I think it's very interesting and very fascinating that we all have these platforms, right? You have your Facebook and your Instagram and your TikTok and Snapchat and what have you. But even Netflix, it is all based on what you're consuming. It's going to show you more of what you're consuming. So if you don't want to continue to see that negativity or that depression or those dark things, start searching positive things, and you're going to start seeing more of those and more of those. And I think that comes from, the manifestation. And I mean, definitely comes from the algorithm, right? But like, we can overcome those algorithms. I have 3 different, social media accounts on my phone, 4 different social media accounts on my phone. And I can tell you that every single one of them are different because of what is contained on them. And, you said it, like, we have these search engines. There's no better time than now to continue to learn, and I think that's so great at your age to say, like, I don't know everything,
Yeah.
And no person will ever know anything, no person, because every variable in life is different. Every variable that they have been around is completely different, right? If you look at an 80-year-old, if you have 10 80-year-old men, they're not going to know the same things. And so even at 80 years old, if they have an open mind to be allowed to get taught and to learn new things, they will continue to grow until then, And I think that's why on this podcast, I do open it up to such a wide variety and diversity within people, because we can always learn from other people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love how you were talking about like consumption and stuff. And that's huge, especially for a young developing mind, where you're, 15 to 25 in that like age range. It's huge that you manage what you consume on this, because, back when I was dealing with my anxiety and depression, a lot of times I wasn't managing what was up here. I was totally down, totally negative, and all of my thoughts were just, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? Why? All these different things. And that's totally normal for that to happen. And I I believe that you create your thoughts. You create your world around you by what you think up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that comes down, like, I believe in the phrase that you become what you consume.
Mm-hmm.
And so that goes down to the media that you watch, on social media daily, the friends that you hang around, the people that you hang around constantly daily, and the music that you listen to on a constant day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I love that you are of the age that we try to teach these things to, right? Like you're the one you're in the epicenter. You're like, come on, friends, like get on the bandwagon, like be like me, And that's inspiring to hear because I don't have kids. I have lots of nieces and nephews and just younger, being around that age group. They're like, you don't know this. You don't, you've never been here. And it's like, well, I was that age at one point, right? And I think it's so easy for them to be like, well, my world's harder now, or this is what's going on. But when you are in that age group and you're like, no, these things matter, right? I think that is so cool for you to be like, no, what I actually consume makes me who I am.
Absolutely.
How is that when you're at school? I feel like, I'm going to say you're going to kind of be an outsider, right? Which is totally okay to be the outsider. How do you deal with your other friends, like your close friends, or maybe they're making fun of you, or like, oh no, man, like that's dumb, or, there's all this stigma. There's just so many things at that age group that are going on to make fun of you. Like,
Right.
How do you combat that?
Well, I mean, I'd say I do agree with your outsider comment. I mean, I do like somewhat get that from school, but I feel a huge amount of respect from a lot of people because they see and are inspired by the stuff I'm doing, which I love what you were saying where, I'm not some old person trying to say, oh yeah, don't do this and this and this. Like I'm their age so they can relate to me better.
Yeah.
That's why I like helping people of my generation. Because I feel like they can relate to me and they'll take advice from me more than somebody who's, in their 30s or 40s
Yeah.
or whoever. And so like what you were saying about like my close friends and stuff. Yeah, I mean there is a lot of times I don't feel like they can relate to a lot of the stuff I go through and like I'm dealing with, but I still try to just be there for them, just continue to be like a great friend for them. I love my friends. I absolutely love like hanging out with them and stuff. But yeah, I mean that is something to navigate, because just doing everything that I'm doing is not something your everyday 17-year-old kid is doing. So it's definitely different and definitely something that has to be, navigated carefully,
Yeah. How do you navigate that with, that at school, right? Like you're this Instagram influencer and you have all of these people following you, like what is that like on a day-to-day at school?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting. One thing that I believe stops a lot of people from pursuing what they want is because they're concerned about what other people will think of them. When I started my podcast over the summer last year, I literally like, and same with Level Up, when I became like open and started like sharing, doing like collab posts and stuff, I literally thought everyone at school was going to be like, oh, what is this kid doing? Like having all these judgments and stuff. And, maybe they're doing that like in their room, like by themselves or something. But nobody, like one thing that made me realize is nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Everyone's too concerned about themselves to really care, When I started the podcast, I thought everyone would be talking to me about it and stuff, but no, nobody cares. Nobody really, like I just said, like everyone's concerned about themselves more than they are about others. And so, when they see some, kid at our school, like doing a podcast, they're like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. It's nothing like, it's nothing to be like scared of or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's you made a good point where I think that will translate to any point in your life where I think so much that stops people from pursuing what they really want to pursue is because they're worried about what others are going to say or what others are going to think of them. And we put so much power into other people's opinions. and definitely, I can be guilty of this, oh, well, I need to make sure it's perfect before it gets posted, or all of these things. Actually, that I don't have that. I post whatever. People know that. People know that there's usually always grammar errors, but that's fine. Like, that's to them to judge. It's just like, I'm here to share who I am and what my story is, and how I get to share these stories. But that will always transition into your life. And if we put so much power into their opinions, when really at the end of the day, they don't pay our bills, they
Yeah.
don't really matter. Like, when you're in that dark spot, they're not there. It's
Yeah.
you. It's you and your thoughts and your opinions of yourself that are more powerful than what other people think.
Right. It's like, why would you let some kid that you had in 2 of your high school classes affect you from making a business decision or like posting on social media what you believe,
Yeah.
Like, who cares, Like, we
Yeah.
were talking about risk earlier. There's risk to doing those sorts of things. Like, yeah, people might judge you. People might hate on it, but there's also people that will love the content that you
Yeah.
post. People will be inspired by it. I've had a lot of people and friends that I've had DM me on Instagram once I started posting videos of me, and they're saying like, oh wow, I love this content you're posting, like it's really inspiring, and you should keep doing it,
That's awesome.
you know um and so like I feel like a lot of kids just need to get over themselves and just believe that nobody really cares.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, whatever you do, nobody's gonna care.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of people are not going to remember. Like,
Exactly.
I don't remember things, and I've had to like do this to myself, right? Like, even my siblings or my family, I'm like, I don't remember, those specific things or what happened, and it's just a different perspective. And then I think, to me, I'm like, well, then they probably don't remember what I've done or what I've, thought about something. And so it's like, don't allow other people to intrude on your own mindset. Do whatever the hell you want.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You'll find people and if people are going to judge you, most of the time that comes out of jealousy, and take that, like, thrive with that, right? You're like, oh, you want to judge me? Okay, that's your own perspective. Like, that's not my perspective on myself, and continuing to do that. And I'm glad to hear that people are messaging you and saying, like, keep doing this. And tell us a little bit more about Level Up.
So Level Up was a project that I started back in March of last year, and it initially was just a thing. I was just dumping like stuff on there. I was kind of just using it to learn video editing and like social media stuff, and then also like a little bit of like graphic design. A little bit. I'm still terrible at graphic design, but I got good at video editing, so I got something from it. But yeah, so I kind of just used it to throw like clips from podcasts and like, or sermons or whatever that I saw and that I thought would help people. I just like threw it on there, and I got inspired because there's a lot of other pages that are just like Level Up, where they post like, podcast clips and stuff. I'm sure you've seen a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so now I'm still like in kind of a transitional phase with it. I'm still like figuring out exactly what I want to do with it. I think the podcast, whenever it drops, I'm still like in the process of recording episodes for it. When it drops, like, that'll be huge. And I'm still like in a transitional phase of how I can shape and turn it into a real business,
Yeah.
and not just some side project,
Yeah. And I think that's, where you continue to find your value. Like, you've found a purpose, and turning that purpose into a business,
Yeah.
Like, not feeling like you're working, doing these things, like going after that, continuing to fill your cup and getting paid for it, which was super cool.
Exactly. That's the goal. you know?
Yes. Yeah. Trying to recruit him to do some of my video content, because I am not the person that likes to do the video editing. Like,
Really? Yeah.
on your phone, and you got to screen record, and then you got to go back
yeah.
here, and then you got to put it in this part, and I'm like, nope, I'm good on that. Like, I see your content; it's super awesome. But
Thank you.
tell us a little bit about the podcast.
So I had a podcast back in this past summer. It was called Interviewing Boise's Best. And so I had about, I think, 8 or 9 episodes on there. And so I had like just some interviews of people I knew and stuff. And that's kind of what I want to do with the Level Up podcast, but also have more solo episodes of just me talking for 20, 25 minutes about various topics that I think young people can really take and implement in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Do you find, I mean, I feel like every kid these days has an AirPod in or music or something. How many young people do you think are consuming podcasts?
I mean, it varies. I mean, I know a lot of my friends listen to podcasts, and I think if I continue to build my brand up as somebody who is helping young people, I believe that people that are, my age range that want to improve their life would love to listen to a podcast of somebody who's going through the things they're going through, talk to them
Mm-hmm.
and help them improve their lives. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, podcasts are such at the infancy stage,
Yeah.
and being able to get in there is so freaking cool. I mean, you'll be number 51 of my episodes, right? Like 51
That's awesome.
people, 51 weeks. That's just insane to me. But it's that growing. It's that, every message or every podcast that you hear, somebody needs to hear it, and they'll grab something completely different than the other person that's heard the exact same thing. And I think that's the cool part about podcasts is they're so easy to consume. If you're driving or if you're working out or, there's so many different ways to be able to consume them and at such ease.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love podcasts. It's very easy because, a lot of people have very short attention spans. That's why a lot of kids my age can't read at all because they have such low attention spans. So that's the good thing about podcasts is you can do something else while you're listening to the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
with whether that's you driving or you lifting weights or going to the gym, going on a run, doing chores, whatever it may be. You can do something else while you're listening to a podcast, and that's the cool thing about podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they stick around forever.
Exactly,
I mean, unless
yeah.
you delete them yourself, they're stick around. There's many podcasts that I've listened to that, maybe I've liked a couple episodes and I'm like, oh, I would, look, where's the next one? And they don't have another one. And it was clear back in 2017 that they, recorded it, which is dang, it's for podcasters. I want to throw this out there. It's a grind for sure, and you've experienced this where you're trying to get your episodes up and you're trying to get them, running and the editing and all of these different things. If you are somebody that has thought about wanting to podcast, I encourage you to reach out to this podcast because there's a couple things I've got coming on of helping people with that because podcasts, they are so easy to start and get going, but the consistency is really hard. And a lot of people don't have the time to be able to do that. So I'm excited to see where your podcast goes
Thank
from
you.
here.
And yeah, a lot of times it's just taking the action and taking the step and doing it.
Yeah.
Like when I started my first podcast, I had a 4-year-old HP laptop. I was doing Zoom interviews for the podcast. I was literally recording on Zoom and then taking it and editing on a free editing software called HitFilm Express. It was terrible editing. Never use that editing software. It's terrible. Use CapCut instead. That's way better. Anyway, I would go take the podcast and cut it up on there and stuff, and then throw it up on Buzzsprout and stuff, and then I had it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And yeah, I was I had zero equipment. Oh, and I also had a 3-4-year-old Blue Snowball mic. That was my mic.
Yeah.
And so I was doing Zoom interviews on a 4-year-old laptop with a 4-year-old Blue Snowball mic that's $50. And I started. I didn't let that stop me because a lot of people, when they want to start something like a podcast, they think, oh, I need to have an entire studio like this or have a super high quality mic. But it's you can just start right now,
Yeah.
with very little equipment.
Very little equipment, and I think that translating to anything in life, if there's anything you want to do, you will figure out how you really want to be able to do it, right? A 4-year-old laptop did not hinder you from being able to start. You had that purpose, you had that passion of being I want to start, I'm going to make it work. If it's not perfect, it's fine. It's totally okay that things are not perfect because I will tell you, every person has a different aspect of what perfect is, you know, and there can be people that are like, oh, there's a better mic out there than what you have. And it's like, that's fine and that's great, but I'm going to work with what I have now and I'm going to do something instead of doing nothing.
Right. And that's why I'm super excited for the Level Up Lifestyle podcast, because now my equipment's way better. Obviously, we have this beautiful studio here that I'll be recording the episodes in. And